Welcome to another Federal Tax Update podcast. This is Roger Harris and Annie Schwab. And Annie, welcome. And tax season has started.
Tax season has started. So far, so good, I have to say. No working late nights or weekends for me so far, knock on wood. But fingers crossed for a successful, easy tax season. How's that?
Yeah, well, it's early, but at least so far, so good. We'll see what our feeling is when we get to April 16th.
Exactly.
We're excited about today's podcast. We have someone joining us that I think a lot of you probably will know or have come in contact with because she's been very visible in our community. And we had an interesting, and we'll expand on this as we go through the next hour. Annie and I both came in contact with her actually the same day in
Yeah.
different settings. And we just looked at each other and said, well, why don't we get her as a guest on our podcast? So we are excited to have, again, someone I'm sure a lot of you know, Jennifer MacMillan, who is the current and sitting president of NAEA, and someone who want to welcome you and happy to have you with us, and can't wait to talk to you for the next hour. So Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We should have done this sooner. We should have had you sooner, but
Oh, well, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And I enjoyed my time with you on our Accounting Today webinar towards the end of the year. But if you would, please introduce yourself a little bit to our audience, kind of fill them in on what you've been doing, what your background is, and
Yeah.
what's your next steps.
Yeah. Not sure about next steps. I'm right
Yeah.
working right in the present right now. I've been an enrolled agent for over 30 years. And as Roger mentioned, I'm the current president of NAEA. Been had a practice in Santa Barbara, California for many years, and then sold that and ended up semi-retired in Colorado and loving living in the mountains and not having a tax season.
Right.
Thrilled about that. But I am keeping up on what's going on because one of my passions is advocacy, and that's one reason I'm so involved at NAEA. I first joined NAEA shortly after becoming an enrolled agent, and right away got involved in leadership activities, both at NAEA and the California Society. So past president of California Society and was government relations chair at NAEA for 3 years, and eventually became got on ERSAC and became the chair of ERSAC. So got to know a lot of DC tax attorneys and a lot of leadership at the IRS. So I've been very active with that. So that is my favorite part of NAEA, and I think it's one of our greatest benefits is the advocacy for enrolled agents and for just great tax administration. We're always pushing for better from the IRS.
Sure. Looking back 30 years, what caused you to get in this profession?
I had taken tax courses in college and then found myself suddenly single and a single mom, and ended up back in Santa Barbara where I was from, and just happened to get a job with an enrolled agent firm. And after I'd been working there for about a year, my boss walked in and dropped books on my desk and said, "You're going to sit for the enrolled agents exam this year." And I said, "Isn't there like some lower license I could get?" And she said, "Nope, you're going to be an enrolled agent." So I just lucked into it. And as soon as I got my license, everyone in the firm started dropping notices on my desk saying, "Would you call the IRS about this person?" So I got trained on the job doing representation, and then eventually found out about the National Tax Practice Institute, NTPI, which is NAEA's premier education on representation, and loved that, learned everything I needed to know to be a much better representative. And eventually ended up teaching for NTPI because I really loved doing audits, and I sometimes loved doing collection representation. Offers and compromise were always extremely gratifying in the end. So, I've just been really fortunate in my career. And I know you guys are really great advocates for setting yourself up to become able to sell your practice.
Right.
And so I did a lot of those things right, made sure my fees were comparable to other people so that they'd want to buy my practice, but
Sure.
made sure I was keeping track of everything I needed to do and know in order to get a really good price for my practice and be able to step away and leave my clients in really good hands.
So what made you decide this was the time to sell?
Well, it was it was just a personal decision. My husband needed to retire because he had been doing carpentry work, and I was done with him doing that, and he was done with it. And so I just started kind of floating my practice out there, and was checking around for enrolled agents in my local area to sell to, and other AFSP participants, and really didn't find anyone. But I had a friend that was a CPA who I knew because of my involvement with CSEA, and she was local, and she operated much the same way I did. And so once I started floating my practice around among CPA firms, I got a call from her saying, "Oh, Jennifer,
Yeah.
so I hear you practice might be for sale." I'm like, "Yes." We went to lunch, and it was a done deal.
Wow, that was easy.
Yeah, it was
That's
super easy.
awesome.
There was a lot of work that went into
Of
that,
course.
floating the practice, but yeah, I have just been really fortunate, but I've also been really thoughtful about how I put things together in my practice from the very beginning, like
Right.
making decisions on, how fast my internet speed needed to be back in the year 2002,
Right.
and so, yeah, just put a lot of thought into what programs to buy, to track my time, to track my profitability and all that. So,
Well, you had to put together a really good firm for it to be that easy for someone. That's a compliment to you, but doesn't surprise me given the way your whole career led up to that. But yeah, sometimes it's just the right time.
yeah, and I also I made sure that my practice was, because I did a lot of representation as part of it, I made sure I kept my tax practice fairly small. So I did have work throughout the year, and I had some holes in my schedule during tax season, which I know seems like a completely foreign
Yeah.
concept to most people listening. But really, you can structure your practice so that you have excess time in tax season. It means you get to go home at like 7 p.m. instead of midnight a lot of nights. And also then it leaves room for, if a client calls on April 13th and says, "Oh my gosh, my bank account's been levied." So you've got a little bit of flexibility there. And it really did make for a well-rounded practice.
That's exciting. So tell us a little bit more about NAEA. I know we've been throwing around a lot of acronyms here. So,
Yes.
uh,
NAEA is the National Association of Enrolled Agents, and
mhm.
it really is a great community. We have a web board, and we have a members-only Facebook page that really are a godsend during tax season and other times, because you can go in and just search for keywords, and get really great professional help from your colleagues. I've found that the members in there tend to be really, really helpful to one another. They'll cite the code or regulations, revenue procedures and stuff for others when they ask a question, and it's really been helpful. And also just to know that you're not alone out there. Everyone else is struggling with the same stuff you are. Like this tax season, I know there's just going to be tons of IRS issues for mostly post filing. Once those notices start coming, it's going to be a nightmare. And I'm glad that you guys are hearing good things about tax season going smoothly so far.
So far.
So far, yeah.
Yeah, NAEA currently has a survey out, and I was able
Oh,
to access the early responses, the first like 106 people that responded, just saying, what are your issues? What are you seeing as far as practitioner priority service? The issues with the IRS, and the results are not good.
Oh, really?
oh,
Yeah, we're hearing about them putting early trainees on the front lines,
on
and
the phones.
yes, on the phones.
Oh no.
And yeah, and because the IRS let so many people go. Besides Doge cuts, they gave all those people early retirement, or the ones that were still working after the age of 65. They all decided, yeah, it's time to get
If
out
it's
of
time.
here. Yeah, they're offering me money, I'll go. So they've lost just a ton of their experienced staff, and they have hired a lot. I heard that they're going to start training people to be on the phones later in February.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So taxpayers are going to be really affected by this too. The 1040 line, phone line is going to be clogged for anyone that needs a real person to help. I mean,
Right.
their online stuff at the IRS is getting better. The tax pro accounts are getting better, but they certainly don't handle the more sticky problems that we all encounter on a daily basis in our practices.
Yeah.
The number of disconnects, the difficulty of getting through has kind of always been a problem.
Right.
But people are now, one person in the comments said, I had 25 phone calls to the IRS on a single issue. I never got it resolved, but spent, hours upon hours, and so many disconnects, either unintentional or intentional disconnects,
Right.
but getting passed around from person to person and nobody being able to help them. So it's been a frustrating time to be a
And it's just the
representative.
beginning. It's only the
Yeah.
beginning of,
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Well, some of these, these are people looking for refunds from a 2024 amended return, or an amended return filed in 2024. They're still working those.
they're still waiting.
So
Yeah.
there are huge backlogs on correspondence, and people getting levied on things that should have been resolved because they really don't owe the tax. And
So frustrating for
it's
everyone
really
involved.
been frustrating. So that's the latest word from colleagues at NAEA. So
Well, you triggered a story and something I heard yesterday. It's funny how you triggered this about the phones. A person got a notice that they had increased. It was a trust return by tax by $400 with no explanation as to why or anything. So they called the IRS to try to figure out, well, why do I owe $400 more? They were the return preparer and the trustee, and they were told, I can't talk to you. And so the question was, well, who can you talk to? If you can't talk to me as the trustee and the return preparer, who can you talk to? And their answer was, well, I just can't talk to you.
oh boy.
Well,
I have
Not
heard
going well.
one of the answers in our survey was about power of attorney not being honored. Like
Yeah.
people.
Well, that's what I'm
being
saying. So you get the power of attorney for yourself. I mean,
Right.
And so finally, they asked the person on the phone, says, well, what should I do? And they said, well, why don't you hang up and call back and see if you get somebody else?
Oh, seriously?
Wow.
It's a true story. And,
I would have told them to do the same thing, but I'm surprised the IRS would say that.
so they did. They called back,
Yeah.
used the callback feature, and said they got to call back within the hour. And that
That's
person
pretty good.
could handle it, could talk to them and handle the whole thing. So
Yeah.
obviously the first person, I think they even indicated they were new. So
Yeah.
Sounds like
So-
it.
Yeah,
So I-
and I've heard of problems with escalating things to a supervisor. Those things aren't getting really escalated, or too
Yeah.
many things are having to be escalated. Other people there was one story, someone had tried to go to taxpayer advocate with one of these things, and even the advocate's office said, oh, well, we can't help you with that because XYZ, and it was just a completely ridiculous reason that they couldn't help.
Oh, yeah.
Because there wasn't a hardship. So,
Well, I guess one thing I've learned this week is if you don't like the answer you get from the IRS, hang up and call back, because that's their
Exactly.
guidance now.
that's always been one of the answers. But also, it's like, who's your boss is the other
Yeah.
other
Right.
question.
They
that
probably
honestly-
don't even know who their boss is.
don't know,
It's changed
right.
so many times.
and their boss may not know the answer either.
That's true. But how are the processing of returns going? So, obviously the fastest way to get your refund, is to e-file the return, to use direct deposit, those kinds of things. Have you heard any nightmare stories, or are we looking good?
I think as far as all the electronic things are working. So
Great.
the IT people got it together. But I think as soon as there's an issue, if it takes a person to resolve it, it's going to
That's
be a
fair.
Or
long
something on
slog.
paper, snail mail, or
Yeah, and
kinds
I
of
don't
things.
have
It's just
I never had any clients that had, like, earned income credit and stuff like that, and I know those get stuck in fraud filters, but I haven't heard anything yet about those from
Yeah.
Right.
members.
And this is anecdotal at best, but someone in our office told me this morning that they filed their tax return and got their refund in 5 days. So
Yay!
yeah,
now
okay.
this is early and, that may not be, but at least it was a good promising
A
sign
good
this
sign.
early.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that is good news. Yeah, I have not heard about processing issues, as long as it's electronically filed and the refund's getting direct deposited.
yeah,
Yeah. And
That
I mean, that's great. I mean, 5 days, I mean,
that's
I still tell people 2 weeks, average 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that brings up something else I wanted to chat about was, client expectations.
yeah,
Mhm.
I think this year in particular, just because there's so much misinformation out there,
Of course.
and the one big beautiful bill thing, a lot of our clients have misunderstandings about how things are going. So not only do you need to have more communication with them this year, such as like seniors, some of them are not going to bring their SSA 1099s in because they think that it's not taxable
Right, they think it's
anymore.
right.
tax-free.
That's what they
So,
heard.
yep, that is what they heard, and,
And social media is not helping. I've seen so many things on social media that are just downright wrong or misleading.
yep.
And unfortunately, it's getting worse as the season's going on.
Yeah,
Um,
I think a lot of communication, and set aside extra time for all of your clients because there are so many misconceptions out there. And just in general, keeping clients' expectations at the low end, so that you
right.
can overperform. Let them know that their refunds are not going to be coming in 5 days in
No,
general. They
no.
Right.
might, but dispel any of those hopeful, things from your clients if you're, unless you have one of those rapid refund things going on, but
Right.
I think most of us do not. And letting them know, especially if they get a notice about something, make sure that they know this could take a really long time to get
Oh, yeah.
fixed, and that, our fees are going to be commensurate with all the time it takes us to teach the IRS what they should already know, to cite the Internal Revenue Manual for them and teach them their jobs. So it's just going to be more burdensome on everybody, but the clients need to know that you're going to have to charge them to, address a notice that maybe in the past you could have just kind of wrapped
Handled
into
on the
their
phone, right?
fee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keeping their expectations on the low side just because we don't know what's going to be going on with the IRS and the state agencies. A lot of them are having the same issues where they've got, they're low on staff. You've got some untrained staff, depending on your state, and some states have always been impossible to
Yeah.
deal with.
Well, I think the other thing is we're going to be the ones that's going to have to explain a lot of misconceptions because we all got bombarded with campaign ads that said no
Mhm.
tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Nobody followed the in and outs of the big beautiful bill. They heard that, and then they get on social media and they hear it again, and then they come to us and we go, well, that's not exactly right. Well, I heard it, on an ad. Saw it on social media. So we're going to have to be the one that kind of tempers some expectations they had coming in that, to your point, particularly Social Security, that, I don't have to report it anymore.
Yep.
Well, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all gonna think that they're overtime, that, not just that extra half, like, coming from California originally, state of California has completely different rules about overtime, and
Right.
if the employer's following the state rules, not the federal rules, and having to pay double time because of, excess hours, a lot of that is still gonna be taxable, so
Yeah. And that's your point about charging. Those are the kinds of things that that California's got different rules. All this. All this sort of stuff is valuable information that we have to be compensated for. It's not really relevant to how long it takes me to do a return anymore. It's
Right. Yeah, because your knowledge that you spent years getting
Exactly.
and a lot of hours doing continuing education, all of that has value. And yeah, I figured out a long time ago that most things shouldn't be billed hourly. Other than a lot of representation work gets billed hourly, but
Yeah.
you never know
Well,
what
and
that's going to take.
there's going to be things because there's a lot of stuff that's just 2025. For example, the tips and overtime, and then all of a sudden you roll into 2026, and now you're educating the clients again on why is this different than the year before?
What went away?
Yeah.
What went away? What's this form? I didn't have this form before. Or last year you asked me these questions, and now you're telling me to do something different. So I don't think this is just a single year. In fact, there's a lot of the provisions run from 25 to 28. So
Right.
25 is going to be different than 26, and then 2 years later you're going to have a lot of things changing. So this is going to be a long process.
Yep.
And then after we get everybody got it all figured out, it goes away.
It goes away, right?
But there will be new stuff. Don't worry.
yeah, there'll be
Congress
there's
always
always
brings
something.
us
There'll
new
be
stuff.
something. There's always something. And one last thing about working by the hour. I always, when people tell me I charge by the hour, I said, well, I'm going to give you the best tip I can ever give you to make the most money. Slow down, because if all you're doing is billing by the hour, then what's the hurry? Take as long as you want to. Obviously, that's not a good. In addition to that also negates the fact that you've gotten smarter and can do something quicker. It devalues you having knowledge because it's better off to have to go look it up. And
Right.
so it just doesn't make sense to charge by the hour. Sometimes it could, but for the most part, charge what it's worth. And
Exactly.
if they don't want to
Yeah.
pay you, there's plenty of clients out there that will.
Yeah. And there's all those other costs that variable and fixed costs that you've got to work in there as well. So I used to do all my tax returns were on fee schedule, and I would set the fee schedule at fairly high level and just say it was a minimum, but then the clients that were really organized, I could give them a courtesy discount and everybody was happy,
Yeah.
Right. Well, and like you said, it's part of my job, or most tax preparers is staying in the know. And I know NAEA has, their tax practice institute that offers education. I mean, all of those are great avenues to stay in the know. I feel like Roger's in DC a bunch. Jennifer, I know you're in DC quite a bit as well. I mean, bringing back all of that knowledge from these conferences or being part of a community or a group. I mean, all of that adds value to what you can provide.
Exactly. And speaking of value, like to
Sure.
put in a plug,
Sure.
for NAEA 3 years ago we realized that what our members wanted was continuing education that was either very low cost or free. So we just started doing a massive amount of free education, really good quality for the most part. And we offer 40 hours a year of free continuing education for enrolled agents and AFSP participants. So
Nice.
that right there really makes up for, the cost of
Sure.
membership.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I'm doing a 2-hour course this afternoon. It's given by AJ Reynolds, and looking forward to that. And it's just been a really great membership tool, and it's been great for our members to be able to get all their CE from NAEA as part of
And
their
is it
membership.
all online or are there
It's
in-person events?
the free CE is all webinars.
Okay.
And we do have our tax summit every July, which is really, really fun. We're going to have 2 levels of NTPI there, the National Tax Practice Institute. This summer, we'll have level 1 and level 3.
Okay.
And level 2 is available online. And we also have a tax education track during Tax Summit. So we do have 2.5 days, I think, of live CE available and this year we're in New Orleans.
Oh, yay.
Yay.
That's
New Orleans
where
is such
Annie
a fun place.
grew up, in New Orleans. So
Yeah, I
that's her
did.
Well,
hometown.
come join us.
Born and raised there. I need to look into it. I think this
Yeah,
would be
definitely. Come see
Yeah.
us.
fabulous. It sounds like there are a lot of benefits to the membership, and I love that you mentioned the Facebook page. It's so nice to see when people have the same kind of questions that you have, or you
Yeah.
don't feel so alone when you feel the pain of other people just like you.
Yeah,
Um,
literally, when I started out on my own, NAEA and CSEA colleagues were the reason I felt I could be out on my own, because I had been in an office before where
mhm.
you
Right.
could just go ask somebody if you had a question about something.
Always
And
somebody in that next office.
knowing I've got colleagues all over the country, I can call somebody. If I've got somebody and suddenly their K1's got a bunch of Kentucky income on it, I just get on the phone and start talking to colleagues in Kentucky about, what does this mean?
Mhm.
Well, as opposed to just typing it in the software and calling it Kentucky and
Yeah,
figuring that.
hoping for the best.
Yeah, hopefully I
Right,
got it
right.
right. Yeah.
That's
All
true.
right, you guys, I gotta ask you this. I come back from DC and I'm reading everything. I go to Accounting Today. I go to the Checkpoint. All I hear is you two about this webinar you guys did. And tell everybody, because you became instantly famous. And so tell
We
everybody
became
what.
instant friends too.
That's true. That's exactly
Yeah.
what happened.
So share
Yeah.
with everybody what it was about, kind of things you talked. I mean, some of it we've talked about today. I know there was more than just you, but I'm going to focus it with just two of you guys. So just,
Because we were the best two on there.
well,
Um,
evidently that's all I read when I got back. I thought,
Well,
what?
it was the moving ahead into tax season, Accounting Today panel, and actually Annie and I basically answered the questions the same way. I kept saying exactly what Annie just said.
Right.
It really was. At that point, I was cautiously optimistic about how filing season was going to go. And now that
Yeah.
I've seen the NAEA survey results, not as optimistic, especially with finding out that they are taking people that are not well trained and throwing them on the front lines on the phones.
Yeah.
And those are the same people that answer correspondence. So I expect that we'll be getting some interesting answers to correspondence that we send in on behalf of clients. But Annie, what was your takeaway from that?
Right. So this was before tax season opened, which was sort of like the prep of like, okay, well, what do you anticipate? So there were some questions that you and I answered regarding, what are you worried about this coming tax season? How are you going to deal? Like, what's going to be the most difficult thing dealing with your clients? What's the new tax law going to do? We spent some time discussing no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, also some of the dealings with the IRS, definitely new banking account, making sure that banking account information is on there because the IRS is not sending out refund checks. How to respond to notices very efficiently so that hopefully it gets answered the first time around. We talked about making sure that both tax pros get those online accounts set up, as well as encouraging your clients to go and set up the online accounts for them. There's a lot of information. There's been quite a few enhancements from last year to this year regarding some of those online accounts. So it was great. It's recorded. It's out there. You can go see it on Accounting Today. Earmark has a version of it as well. Roger and I have discussed a lot of the topics, but it was fun, and like you said, it was great to meet you and see you. And now here we are again. So I hope that we can continue this partnership. I always learn something new every time we talk when we're sharing stories. So thank you again for joining us and for being on that as well.
Yeah. One thing, since we were in DC, and that was when Roger and I went up on the Hill together. Didn't mean to change the subject on you,
No,
Roger.
that's
Oh, no,
not.
no.
Just one last thing. I compliment both of you because you were invited to do this by the people at Accounting Today. So it was a compliment, first of all, that you were asked, and then both of you did a great job. So now go anywhere you want to. I
Thanks.
just had to say
That's
that.
how I felt about it too. I was honored to be
Yeah.
asked.
Yeah.
Well, because we've been talking about advocacy, and
Right.
Roger and I were on the Hill together, talking to Ways and Means leadership and the Ways and Means, the staff for Ways and Means itself. And it reminds me that NAEA also has a fly-in for members,
Right.
where that's going to be May 5th and 6th. It's a members-only event. So I would encourage you, if you're an enrolled agent, become a member and sign up for the fly-in. It is the most fun 2 days you can have in Washington, D.C. We have a day full of panels that usually includes some past IRS commissioners. We get the tax press to come in and talk to us. Usually have a keynote who's somebody very high up in the IRS that can tell us what's going on, and we can tell them what our issues are. And then we spend a day on the Hill talking about NAEA's legislative priorities. So that's May 5th and 6th. I encourage you, if you're a member, please sign up for that. It is a blast. And our main issue is going to be what we're hoping will come through this year. We've been working for years on minimum standards for paid preparers. And I know everybody who watches this is one of those conscientious and competent preparers.
Of course they
and
are.
the whole idea is to get the incompetent ones or the unscrupulous ones out of the industry. And so there is a new minimum standards bill coming up. The House bill has been introduced by Panetta and I can't remember the
Representative Stubble. We have one Democrat, one Republican, which makes it unusual in Washington.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the reminder. But also the Senate is coming up with a bill. They did a discussion draft that they passed around among senators for almost a year, talking about what they want to have in an IRS restructuring bill or an IRS reform bill. And they've got a massive bill that's going to come out with 86 or 87 provisions for the IRS to improve. And one of them is allowing the IRS to regulate preparers. And the minimum standards are just a few hours of continuing education. There's no test involved like there was for the RTRP designation and ethical training. So it's the same thing that AFSP participants and enrolled agents are already doing. It will just get the bad actors out of the industry, which is good for all of us. So I'm really excited that looks like we've got two bills coming from the House and the
this is
Senate.
unusual that everybody's kind of on the same page. I feel
Isn't that though?
this
Yeah.
could be an interesting.
It's one of those places where they can find some bipartisan agreement. So they are all anxious in an election year to get something done on a bipartisan basis. And, finally, it sounds like they've all been talking about it and they realize that this is just consumer protection. So I'm really hoping this is going to elevate our entire industry. All of us that are competent are going to get elevated by this. So I'm delighted, and I'm really excited that that's what we're going to be talking about when we go on the Hill on May 5th. And they're talking about potentially introducing the Senate bill on April 15th or right around April 15th.
Gotcha.
So everybody else will be busy, but
right.
so I think that's coming, and we're going to be talking about it big time in May.
And it's common sense. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue. I mean, and maybe not everybody knows this, but right now, roughly half of the people who prepare returns have no designation of any type. So, there's no real ramifications other than the marketplace, if they're not competent. And yet I would bet that most of the people who go to these people probably think they did have to pass some sort of test or take some sort of continuing education.
They hold themselves out as educated and qualified and all of these things. And
some are, but not all.
Many of them are, But and those are the people who are already getting some education. They're paying attention, and they're taking courses and doing the work to prepare good returns. But then there are those that are not, and they have no interest in really understanding what they're doing. They're just getting refunds for their friends and neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it for years. You get new clients that come from preparers, and you're looking at the prior year tax return, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, there's a lot of red flags in here, and I can't. Where did this number come from? This is outrageous. The things that I've seen, it's.
Yep, I think we all have.
And one of the things that hopefully they'll recognize in Congress is when you have a weakened IRS, I'll call it, with less resources. Obviously, they have less people. They can therefore do less enforcement. It's more important than ever that the people who are assisting in preparing everybody's tax return does it the right way, because the monetary cost to the federal government of people just doing whatever makes the client happy or whatever they think they know or don't know, with no ramifications of it coming back to bite you. You don't get audited, you
Yeah.
don't get caught. There's no telling. Just look at some of the COVID stuff. And again, we always talk about ERC, but the amount of money that got taken away from the government people weren't entitled to was massive. And again, yes, it was a bad time. I understand Congress moving quickly and everybody moving quickly. I mean, hell, we didn't know if we were going to survive, much less, worry about tax credits. But the damage to the federal government revenue stream of having half the people out there doing it just the way they think it's supposed to be done, not the way it's supposed to be
Right.
done. And hopefully the people in Congress will recognize that this is not just something that we're asking for self-serving interests, which we're not, but it's good for government.
Yeah. Yeah. The tax gap just keeps getting bigger. And, word has gotten out in the public that they aren't doing very many audits anymore.
Yeah.
And, audits are one of those things that keep people honest. So, preparers and taxpayers alike are susceptible to like, oh, let's just put this on the return, or let's just,
let's
oh,
just
you
try
think
this.
you think you had more in contributions? Let's just add a couple thousand, or
Yeah.
And I can remember, I'm probably older than the two of you combined, but there used to be a fear from taxpayers, particularly in the small business community, that if they didn't do it right, they would get caught. And they always knew somebody that got an audit. It was real to them, maybe not them personally, but they knew somebody. I don't even think if you went to someone and said, have you ever been audited? They'd say no. And if you said, do you know anybody that's been audited? They'd probably say no. So that belief that you have to do it the right way it's just not there like it used to be.
The fear.
I totally agree. They used to take every town that had an IRS office used to audit one blue collar worker and one doctor and just really nail them, and then put that on the front page of that newspaper on April 10th or so. Dr. So and so loses IRS audit and is forced to pay millions of dollars.
And they used to do that to some practitioners. I can remember where, they would come in and do I forget what they called it, prepare a project or something.
Prepare, yeah.
And they would make that public. So you've lost that in addition, for the people that aren't doing things the right way. I mean, again, I don't know why anybody, and I don't think there's many people that oppose it on its merits. There may be some people who fight. I mean, I think personally, I think you and NAEA would agree, we wish it was stronger.
Yeah.
In terms of, a tougher standard to meet. But
we would have liked a test, but but in order to get everybody on board, that was the thing we were willing to give up, to get NATP and AICPA, everybody on board with, this is just common sense, and let's not make it a hurdle for people. Don't make it a barrier to entry. Just make sure that who's out there working on tax returns for money is actually competent. So.
Yeah.
Baby steps, but it will make a difference. It'll make a difference when you start going down that trajectory. I
really do. It will help tax administration, and that really is what we're all about is good tax administration. Would love it if the IRS just had more money so that they could handle more of the tax administration stuff, but it's on us now. So
more burden's going to fall on us. And the budget stuff, it's just, I laugh and say, tell me one politician that got elected by campaigning, I'm going to give the IRS more money.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I
not
get
popular.
It's an easy agency to come after, and it's, everybody's got a certain amount of, but, I still hear that there's some people think there's 84,000 armed IRS agents running around, and it's like, no, there's not.
Yeah.
There are a few, and you don't want to meet them, but they're not anywhere near 84,000 of them. And
the
if
ones
you meet
that say
one
special agent on the back are not the ones you want to meet.
Yeah, you've done something really wrong if you meet an IRS agent that has a gun. I can tell you that.
Very true.
Yeah.
Well, what else should we know about this upcoming tax season or more efforts from NAEA?
Oh, one thing that I did wanna talk about because it's just very recent, there was this issue in Oregon, and I'm not
Oh
sure
yeah,
how many
yeah,
people, that are listening or watching, know about this, but it came to our attention that, Oregon started enforcing their licensure rules. And most of us didn't even know we needed a license in Oregon in order to prepare an Oregon
Even
return,
if you're not living in Oregon?
even if you're not living in Oregon. So
Wow.
they never enforced that part of it until recently. And then suddenly people were getting letters saying, you're not allowed to file in Oregon because you must have this license from the Oregon State Licensure Board, whatever that board is. And they have had this law, I guess, for a very long time, but didn't enforce it. They still don't have the enforcement structure. They don't have the money to enforce it,
Mhm.
but they started letting people know, hey, you have to have a license to file even one Oregon
right. No
return.
minimum number. I mean, just
Right.
the
Oh,
first one.
So the bigger firms all know about this because they've had to license all of their people in Oregon. Smaller firms, I never would have known this just because I never file returns in Oregon. But if I have somebody who buys a rental property in Oregon, I'm sunk.
Yeah,
So CPAs have always been exempted from this rule, but enrolled agents were not. And so NAEA hired a lobbyist out in Oregon, and the Oregon Society of Enrolled Agents helped out, and we got legislation introduced and added to an omnibus bill this year to exempt enrolled agents from the requirements. So it helps enrolled agents all over the country, and it
right.
also helps the Oregon enrolled agents because they were not authorized to be employers of non-licensed people. So now
Wow.
this will also allow their employees to do, some preparation or a partial preparation without having to have this license as long as they are supervised by an enrolled agent.
Yeah.
So we're almost to the deadline for this bill to go through. I believe it's going to go through. It hasn't been opposed. AICPA signed off on it as well. The other national organizations are all for it. So I'm really, really hoping that we've got a win. I don't want to jinx it by saying it's
No.
done because it's almost done.
Yeah, it's
But I
not
just
over till it's over.
want you all to know that that NAEA has saved us all from a lot of hassle in the state of Oregon, and then we're hoping that this means also that other states will follow
that's what I
suit
was gonna
if
say.
they
Yeah.
bring up legislation. We'll be right on top of it and be able to say, well, enrolled agents are also exempted in Oregon. So
Right.
and we have, we've had different state issues over the years. We had an issue in Minnesota.
So something in Minnesota. I remember
Yeah,
that.
where that was a really big fight. We had a member who was told he couldn't get a retainer for representation. I believe that was what the main issue was. And it was like, you can't do representation without getting a retainer because if they're not
Right.
afraid of the IRS, they're not afraid of you.
Nope.
So you're not going to get paid if you do representation without a retainer. So we got that also done through legislation, and that was just a huge win for us. So even though we're a national organization, we're really watching out for enrolled agents' rights in all the states as well.
Yeah, because again, there's a different level of awareness of what the enrolled agent is and what they're allowed to do and not do, and uh, so you need an organization to kind of step up because I know we've seen it, Annie and Paget, where some business or agency would require statements from a CPA for some purpose
Right.
without realizing what the cost of that really does to the small business owner, and that it's basically, for most small businesses, just producing their tax return, and
Right.
yet
Yep.
you had to go pay somebody else a lot of money to comply with a rule that doesn't make any sense.
Yes, exactly.
All right, Jennifer, now that you have sold your practice, you've got, let's see, 3 or 4 months left as president of NAEA.
Yes.
What's next?
Camping.
Oh,
Lots
Camp
of
okay.
camping.
Yeah.
Actually, that's what I'm doing this tax season. It's really fun to be able to go out and play. I never thought I'd be able to play between February and April, and it is really fun. And yeah, I would encourage everyone to be looking way off into the future to when you're going to sell your practice and be able to go off and do what you want during tax season. I'm too old to ski anymore, but my dream was always to someday get to go skiing again after
Yeah.
December, but no.
Well, and you mentioned you're doing a webinar this afternoon, so I'm assuming you're still going to stay engaged in
Oh
the.
yeah, for sure. I just renewed. I just got my new card yesterday. I'm enrolled
Okay.
for another 3 years. So
You got 3 more
yeah,
years.
definitely going to stay active, and I'll stay active at NAEA as well. But it is, the community is kind of part of my life, so I think I'll just kind of stay there.
Yeah. And now you're in Colorado. You moved from
Yes.
California to Colorado.
Went from warmth to snow, but it turns out snow is really great if you don't have to go anywhere,
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
what
Well, I'm in Georgia, and we got snow and ice 2 weekends in a row, and I can tell you what, we're not good with that stuff.
We were warmer than you that week. Yeah, Florida
Yeah,
was colder
yeah.
than us. So, yeah, no, it's absolutely beautiful up here, and a lot of us Californians are retiring here, and they're not necessarily happy with us. But so I'm now a Coloradan. I'm not a California transplant. I'm a Coloradan.
No more ties to California. Well, you're probably saving on taxes too, I would imagine.
Well, I was. The few clients I took with me when I left were all in California, so I have a source issue with that.
Okay.
So my Schedule C is still out in California, but
So
yeah.
But now this is my first year without a Schedule C. I'm delighted.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Well,
tell the audience, those that are listening, if they want to find out more information about NAEA or the benefits or becoming a
Yeah.
member or even volunteering. I know there's some volunteer opportunities as well. We've got just a few minutes, so I wanted to make sure.
Well, NAEA membership is, you can find everything at naea.org. And there are a whole bunch of member benefits besides what I just mentioned. We would love to have you on board. And yeah, I did want to talk about volunteering a little bit at the end here.
Go ahead.
I know Roger and I both have volunteered at NAEA for a long time. And it is one of the reasons I was able to go out on my own and find so many colleagues that are willing to help if I have like a problem in another state.
Right.
Just having that community has been great, and being involved in leadership has been just a boon. I mean, I never would have been on ERSAC or chaired ERSAC had I not had the experience volunteering at the NAEA and CSEA, and it's been delightful to be part of a team. And in any kind of volunteering, you always get more out than you put in. And I can tell you, I've put in a lot of hours and time and effort in my volunteer work over the years. But as my husband says, that I thrive on it. So it really is. It makes life really worth living and lots of fun to have so many colleagues that are really dear friends. And I discovered a few years ago, my husband said, "Can we take a vacation someday when the enrolled agents don't all come along?" So I realized that maybe we should should keep the volunteer stuff a little bit outside of my private life. But, all of my best friends are enrolled agents. So what can I say?
Well, and as a tax practitioner, I really do appreciate all the efforts that you guys do, and Roger too. It makes a difference for our profession, and I appreciate it. So thank you for that.
Well, one thing I'll say about Jennifer, I don't know that I've ever seen her when it wasn't there wasn't some professional reason. She's always got a smile on her face, so she's enjoying it. I mean,
I am. I love this. So
she is into what she's doing, and I've seen you sit at tables at IRS forums and do all, everything that you could imagine, but you always did it with a smile. So
yeah, I do tend to smile a lot. Yeah.
That's okay. That's a good thing. All right.
It makes people smile back at me.
That's right, and that's
I think
better.
when I was a baby, I figured out that if you smile at people, they'll smile back at you.
Yeah. All right, Annie, what else we got for today?
That's all I've got for today. We will be coming back with some more information on no tax on tips, no tax on overtime in our future podcasts. I'm already working on some content there. So hopefully everyone's enjoyed this session and continue to watch our podcast.
Yeah, and Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to spend some time with you in D.C., I guess, about 2 weeks ago. I'm trying to remember. I got to go back next week. They're running together. And thanks for all you've done for the profession. And
thank you.
we're fortunate to have you here today, and we need to have you back, and we can compare ERSAC stories.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Well, it was our pleasure, and you're welcome back anytime. So we'll
thanks.
hopefully see you again soon. Well, I know we'll see you, and hopefully we'll see you
I'll
on
see you
another
in May.
podcast. Yeah, well, I hope so. We're trying.
Okay, yeah, get
That's the plan. So,
all right.
And Annie, thank you. Always a pleasure to see you, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another rambling on of Roger and Annie, and hopefully some of it will make sense. We got in 50 minutes. We'll hope you get something out of it. And thanks everyone for listening. I know it's tax season for most of you, and good luck. And hopefully you'll have a wonderful tax season. And I know you'll be ready for coming out of it, and the weather will be nicer. The sun will shine brighter, and you'll have more money in your bank than when you started it. So good luck to everybody. Thanks for listening. See you again soon. Bye, everybody.